Serial killer couple, Catherine and David Birnie. Abducted 5 women. Chained them to a bed, and repeatedly rapes them. With their victims finding their final resting place in a shallow grave. Except for one. Welcome to Simply Told.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Catherine Margaret Harrison was born on the 23rd of May 1951. She lost her mom, Doreen, at a young age. Her mom died while giving birth to her brother, who also later died. After her mother's death, she was sent to live with her grandparents for a while. About 10 years after her mom's death, a 12-year-old Catherine meets David Birnie. They'll be in a relationship 2 years later. But her dad wasn't feeling it. Asked her, begged her, to end the relationship with David. Stating her prior, and only run-in with the law was due to him. Now that David had become forbidden fruit, made him even hotter to Catherine. Still, everybody tried to convince Catherine to leave David. Explaining that she still had the chance to turn her life around. Catherine would come to work as a housekeeper for the McLaughlin family. It seemed as if her life was finally turning around. On her 21st birthday, she married their son, Donald McLaughlin. They got busy, real busy, birthing 7 children. But, in 1985, Catherine walks away from her kids, her husband, her life, to be with David Birnie. David John Birnie was born on the 16th of February, 1951, in Wattle Grove, Western Australia. A ruralish suburb in Perth. They moved from home to home, but stayed in Perth. David must have not been doing well at school, or maybe he hated school. Either way, he dropped out of school, to pursue a career as a jockey at Ascot Racecourse. During his time as an apprentice, David dabbled in the art of exhibitionism, if you know what I mean. One night, while wearing lady stockings over his head, and nothing else, David entered the room of the woman where he was boarding, and tried to get with her, but in a bad way. He tried to rape her. Prison was David's second home during his teen years. In and out for some, or other trivial felony. But now a man, David was drawn to pornography, leading him becoming a sex addict. David was a young man when he married his first wife. That relationship blessed the couple with a daughter. Crimes. Mary Nielsen, 22, a university student, met David at a used parts yard where he worked. David approached her, and hands her a card as he offers her a deal on some cheap tires. So, on the 6th of October 1986, Mary pulls up at David and Catherine's home. She was ambushed, gagged, and chained. David repeatedly rapes Mary, while Catherine stood and watched. They drove out to Gleneagle. She was strangled then stabbed. Before buried in a shallow grave. Susanna Candy, 16, went missing while hitchhiking along Stirling Highway in Claremont, Australia. She'd become David and Catherine's next victim. David and Catherine was out scouting, looking for their next play date. That's when they spot Susanna. She was abducted. Her hands tied while held at knife point. Back at their house, she was told to send her family letters explaining that she was fine. She was then gagged, and chained, before David rapes her. Catherine hops in bed with them and joins in. After the couple had their way with her, David tries to strangle the helpless girl. But she puts up a fight. Catherine and David subdue their victim by forcing sleeping pills down her throat. It's not long, till Susanna finally falls asleep. David wraps the cord around the girl's neck, and hands it to Catherine, asking her to prove her love to him. Without hesitation, Catherine strangles Susanna to death, while David watched. She was buried near Mary. When Catherine was asked why she killed her, she said, quote, "Because I wanted to see how strong I was, within my inner self. I didn't feel a thing. It was like I expected. I was prepared to follow him to the end of the earth, and do anything to see that his desires were satisfied. She was a female. Females hurt and destroy males." End quote. Around the 1st of November, Nolene Patterson, 31, was on her way home from her job, where she worked as a bartender. While traveling home, via the Canning Highway, her car suddenly sputters to a gradual halt. She'd run out of fuel. David and Catherine spots her standing alongside her car. Once again, a knife was held to their victim's throat, while her hands were tied. She was gagged and chained before David repeatedly rapes her. The plan was to kill Nolene that night. But it appeared as if David grew fond of his latest victim, rather keeping her locked up in the house for 3 days. Catherine noticed what was happening, and gives David a choice. Kill Nolene, or Catherine will kill herself. David grabbed the sleeping pills, and forced them down Nolene's throat, and strangles her, while she slept. He buried Nolene at the same location as the other victims, but away from them. On the 5th of November, Denise Brown was standing, waiting at the bus stop out on Sterling Highway. She had no idea how bad her day would become, after accepting a lift from the friendly, or should I say deadly, neighborhood couple, David and Catherine Birnie. She was tied while at knife point, driven to their house, gagged and chained, before she was repeatedly raped. The next day she was taken to a secluded, wooded area. She was repeatedly raped until nightfall, when David drags the young girl out of the car, and stabs her in the neck. Thinking she was dead, they buried her in a shallow grave, only for her to suddenly sit up. David grabs an axe, and hits Denise on the head, killing her. 17-year-old Kate Moyer was David's and Catherine's last play date. Going through the same procedures as before. Abducted by knife point, hands tied, rinse and repeat. She was ordered to call her family, to let them know that she was okay. She explains that she had too much to drink the night before, hoping her family picks up on her clue, because Kate wasn't a drinker. The following day, Kate realized she had the opportunity to make a run for it. For once, she wasn't tied up. So, after David left for work, and Catherine was preoccupied with a drug deal, Kate jumps out of the window, and runs looking for help. She finds herself at an appliance store. She explains what she'd just been through, with the owner calling the police. When the police arrives, she explains that a couple abducted, and raped her. For some reason the police didn't believe Kate's story. Except for a young police constable. She believed Kate, purely on the detailed information she was able to give. Even handing police the couple's telephone number and home address. Adding that the movie, Rocky, was still in the VCR, as they watched it the night before. Catherine and David was soon arrested and questioned, with both giving conflicting stories. Catherine claims she doesn't know Kate from a bar of soap, with David saying, Kate came over to their home voluntarily. David eventually gives it up, and shows detectives where their previous victims lay buried. Trial and sentencing. David pleaded guilty for the 4 murders. When asked why, he answered, while looking at his victim's family, quote, "It's the least I could do." End quote. David and Catherine received 4 life sentences each. On the 7th of October 2005, at around 4:30 that morning, a 54-year-old David Birnie was found dead in his prison cell at Casuarina Prison. It's believed that he hung himself. Catherine's parole applications thus far has been rejected. Her case was up for review at the start of 2010. But almost a year prior, after following the requests of the victim's family, she was denied parole, never to be released, and will spend the rest of her life in jail. Kate Moyer, their last surviving victim, started a campaign to end Australian laws that automatically put convicts up for parole every 3 years. With Peter, Catherine's youngest son, openly supporting Kate's cause, even calling for his own mother's execution. I guess living as the son of a convicted killer can't be an easy life to live.